Let me ask you something. How many times today did your mind create a problem that didn't even exist? Be honest. How many times did you overthink, imagine something going wrong, or feel anxious about something that hasn't even happened? And in that moment, it felt real, didn't it? The fear felt real. The stress felt real. The problem felt real. But what if I told you none of it was actually real? That it was all created by your mind? Teachings from Annamalai Swami point to something very simple, but very uncomfortable. The mind is not real, and everything you're suffering from right now is coming from it. So here's the real question. If the mind is creating the problem, why are you still listening to it? He doesn't notice it at first. For him, it feels normal. Just another day, just another routine. But if he pays attention, really pays attention, he starts to see something strange. His mind never stops. From the moment he wakes up, it's already talking, thinking, commenting, judging, creating stories. He checks his phone and immediately compares his life to others. He remembers something from the past and suddenly feels regret. He thinks about the future, and anxiety shows up. Nothing actually happened, but inside him, it feels like something did. And that's the part he never questioned. Because to him, it all feels real. The stress feels real. The fear feels real. The pressure feels real. So he reacts. He tries to fix it. He tries to solve it. He tries to control his thoughts, to calm his mind, to figure everything out. But the more he tries, the more it keeps going. Have you ever noticed that? The more you think about something, the bigger it becomes. A small problem turns into something heavy. Something simple turns into something complicated. And suddenly, he's stuck inside his own head, going over the same thoughts again and again, trying to find answers that never seem to satisfy him. And the worst part is, he believes all of it. Every thought, every story, every what if. It feels like truth. But what if it isn't? What if none of those thoughts are actually real? Teachings from Annamalai Swami point to something very direct, something most people never even consider, that the mind itself is not real. And if that's true, then what about all the problems it creates? Because when he looks closely, most of his suffering doesn't come from what's happening. It comes from what he's thinking about what's happening. Something small happens, and the mind builds a story, adds meaning, creates fear, creates doubt, creates scenarios that may never happen. And then, he reacts to those scenarios as if they were real, but they're not. They exist only in thought, only in the mind, and still, they control how he feels, how he acts, how he lives. So now a different question starts to appear. Not, how do I fix my life? But something much simpler and much more uncomfortable. What if the problem was never the situation? What if the problem was always the mind interpreting it? And if that's true, then everything he's been trying to fix might not be the real issue at all, which leads to something even deeper. If the mind is creating most of his suffering, then why has he been trusting it this whole time? And more importantly, what would happen if he stopped? Before we continue, let's pause for a moment. I don't want this to be just another video. You matter here. Comment your name and where you're watching from. Then share what you're going through at this moment. Type this in the comments. What I'm facing right now is Mad. Let your voice be heard. Someone else might relate to you. Now, this is where it becomes personal. Because this is not just about him anymore. This is about you, right now. Think about your day. How many times did something small happen, and your mind turned it into something big? Someone didn't reply to your message, and your mind started creating stories. Did I do something wrong? Are they ignoring me? Did something change? Nothing actually happened, but inside your head, it felt like something did, and you reacted to that feeling. You felt uncomfortable, maybe anxious, maybe insecure. But let me ask you something honestly. Was that real? Or was that something your mind created? Because this is what it does. All day. Every day. It takes simple situations and adds layers to them. It creates meaning. It creates fear. It creates problems that don't exist outside of your thoughts. And the worst part is, you believe it. Without even noticing. You trust it. You follow it. You listen to it. As if it's always telling the truth. But is it? Think about this. How many times have you worried about something and later realized it never even happened? How many times did you create a scenario in your head that was completely different from reality? And in that moment, while you were thinking about it, your body reacted. Your emotions reacted. Your entire state changed, all because of a thought, not because of reality, but because of what your mind said about reality. Teachings from Annamalai Swami point to something very clear. The mind creates an illusion, and then you suffer inside that illusion. It feels real, but it's not. It's just a projection, a constant stream of thoughts that you've been conditioned to believe. So now ask yourself, how much of your suffering today actually came from real situations, and how much came from what your mind said about them? Because there's a big difference. A situation happens, and then your mind interprets it, and that interpretation is where most of the pain comes from. Not from life itself, but from the story you're telling yourself about life. And here's the problem. You've been trying to fix the wrong thing. You try to fix the situation, you try to control people, you try to change outcomes, but the real source of the discomfort is still running in the background. Your mind, creating more thoughts, more stories, more problems. So, no matter what you fix on the outside, something new appears on the inside. Another worry, another fear, another scenario. And the cycle continues, over and over again. So now the question changes. It's no longer, how do I solve my problems?
For most of your life, you believed you were your thoughts. You believed the mind had to be fixed, silenced, controlled. But no one ever told you this. The mind was never the problem. The real trap is believing you are it. There is something in you that watches fear, that watches pain, that watches every thought arise and disappear. That observer has never suffered. It was never born, and it will never die. When this is seen, effort disappears. The spiritual search ends, because the one who was searching was never real. This is not a teaching to believe in. It is a direct experience, simple and deeply liberating. The book, The Awakening of the Observer, does not teach techniques. It points to the exact place where the ego dissolves. Each page is a mirror, and what is seen there cannot be unseen. If something in you recognizes these words, the call has already begun. Click the link in the comments and get your copy of The Awakening of the Observer now.
It becomes something much simpler and much more powerful. Why do you keep believing everything your mind tells you? Because if every thought creates a new problem, and you keep following every thought, then you are trapped in a cycle that never ends. But what if, just for a moment, you stopped? What if you didn't follow the next thought? What if you didn't react to the next story your mind creates? What would actually happen? Would the problem still exist? Or would it disappear? The moment you stop giving it your attention. Because maybe the issue isn't your life. Maybe the issue is that you've been listening to something that was never real to begin with. At some point, I start to see it, not as an idea, not as something I heard, but as something real, happening inside me. I notice how fast my mind moves, how it jumps from one thought to another, without asking me. I'm just sitting there, and suddenly, there's a thought, then another, then a story starts forming, and before I even realize it, I'm already inside it, feeling it, reacting to it, believing it. And that's when something clicks, because I begin to question something I never questioned before. If these thoughts are just appearing, and I'm not choosing them, then why do I treat them like truth? Why do I follow them so easily? Why do I let them decide how I feel? I start to observe more closely. A thought comes, and instead of following it, I just watch it. No reaction, no judgment, just watching. And something strange happens. It passes, on its own, without me doing anything. Then another one comes, and again. If I don't engage with it, it fades. And that's when I realize something that changes everything. The thought needs my attention to survive. Without my attention, it loses strength. Teachings from Annamalai Swami suddenly start to make sense in a very direct way. He points to something extremely simple. Don't fight the mind. Don't try to control it. Don't try to fix it. Just ignore it. At first, that sounds almost too simple, too easy, because I've spent so much time trying to manage my thoughts, trying to calm them, trying to understand them, trying to solve them. But now I'm seeing something different. Every time I try to fix a thought, I'm actually giving it more attention, more energy, more importance, and that keeps the cycle going. But when I do nothing, when I don't follow, when I don't engage, something changes. The thought comes, but it doesn't take over. It appears and disappears. And I stay, not inside the thought, but aware of it. And in that moment, there's no problem, no anxiety, no pressure, because the problem only exists when I go into the thought, when I believe it, when I follow the story. So now I start to see clearly. The suffering was never in the situation. It was never in life itself. It was in the mind, in the constant stream of thoughts that I kept taking seriously. And the biggest shift of all is this. I don't have to stop the mind. I don't have to silence it. I don't have to control it. I just have to stop following it. Because without my attention, it has no power over me. And that changes everything. Because now, for the first time, I'm not trying to escape my thoughts. I'm not trying to fix them. I'm simply not giving them what they need to grow. And in that, something unexpected appears. A sense of space. A sense of calm. Not because the mind stopped, but because I stopped believing it. And now, a new question begins to form. If the mind only has power when I follow it, then what happens? If I truly stop, now, everything becomes simpler. Not because life changed, but because the way he sees it changed. The situations are still there. People still act the way they act. Problems still appear. Nothing outside has really changed. But inside, something is different. Because now, he sees the mind for what it is. A constant stream of thoughts. Coming and going. Creating stories. Trying to pull his attention, but no longer controlling him. Before, every thought felt important. Every idea felt urgent. Every emotion felt like something he had to follow. Now, he pauses. A thought appears, and instead of reacting, he lets it pass. It says something negative. He doesn't argue, It creates a fear. He doesn't try to solve it. It brings a memory. He doesn't go deeper into it. He simply doesn't follow. And because of that, something powerful happens. The thought fades on its own, without effort, without struggle. Teachings from Annamalai Swami point exactly to this. You don't need to fight the mind. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to understand every thought. You just need to stop giving it attention. Because without attention, it cannot continue. And this is where his freedom begins. Not by changing the world, not by controlling everything, but by no longer being controlled from within. Because the mind can still speak. It can still create thoughts. It can still try to pull him back. But now, he doesn't have to go with it. And that changes everything. Because most of the suffering he carried was never really in his life. It was in the stories about his life. Stories created, repeated, and believed. But now, without that belief, without that constant attention, those stories lose their power. And what remains is something much quieter, much lighter, much more real. Life, as it is, without the noise, without the extra weight, without the problems created by the mind. So in the end, nothing needed to be fixed. Nothing needed to be solved. He didn't need to change his life. He only needed to see one thing clearly. The mind was never the problem. Believing it was. And the moment that belief starts to disappear, so does the suffering. If this message resonated with you in any way, please take a moment to subscribe and share this video with your friends and family. This could be exactly what someone close to you needs. And most importantly, don't stop here. The next video already on your screen was chosen to guide you even deeper, so go watch it now and stay in this flow. For those who want to dive further, the book The Awakening of the Observer is available in the pinned comments, where the teachings go deeper with practical exercises for everyday life. And if this video touched you or helped you, you can support this work through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is also in the pinned comments. Your support truly makes a difference. Keep going. The next step is right in front of you.